What if loving K-pop meant going broke? In 2025, the US has seen so many K-pop acts coming in to this country. And that's both a good and bad thing. It seems like almost every month, a K-pop act announces their US tour. And for K-pop fans living in America, you might be thinking, well, isn't that a good thing that we're getting so many concerts? These American fans ought to be excited. But instead, the reverse is happening, where a lot of fans are both burnt out and financially drained. And I can't blame them. So we're going to talk about something that I never thought that would happen in the US, which is K-pop concert fatigue among American fans, because it's real. Now let's start with the obvious. K-pop concerts are expensive. Now it might not be so bad to K-pop fans that only stand one or two groups, so they only see, say, 2 concerts a year. Not too bad. But if you're a multi-stan, your wallet and purses must be hurting, because you can't possibly see every group that you want to see because you might not have the money nor time. So what are some of the costs to seeing a K-pop concert? So if you were to see an S-tier group such as BTS, Blackpink, Twice, Stray Kids, ATEEZ here in the US, you're probably going to spend anywhere from $120 to $300 for decent tickets. Now, if you wanted VIP, obviously that's probably going to cost you near $1,000 or more. And if you want to get merch, add in $50 to $200 on average. So you're expected to spend at least several $100s at minimum. And that's if you live in the same city. It's worse for fans that have to fly in to a major city that gets the K-pop acts, such as LA and New York. And with plane flights, hotels, food, and transportation, that's easily going to cost several hundred, if not thousands of dollars. And then moving past the concerts, you have festivals such as KCON, Coachella, Head in the Clouds, and Lollapalooza, which all have their fair share of K-pop acts in them. So let's talk about some of the real case examples of so many concerts coming in at once. There's been a couple cities that have had 2 concerts at the same time. And one personal experience was back in 2023 in San Francisco, where TXT and Brave Girls were performing on the same night at the same time. So you might be asking, which one did I go to? I did go to Brave Girls at the end, but I had serious FOMO, or fear of missing out, not seeing TXT. And I saw a lot of their Instagram reels and their TikTok videos showing the TXT concert and everything I missed. So that wasn't fun to watch, but hey, Brave Girls were great too. And then in 2025, HYBE puts out 2 of their groups again, our good friends once again TXT, as well as LE SSERAFIM in LA. And for LA natives that are picking between seeing TXT and LE SSERAFIM, it's a tough choice. And I really empathize for the multi-stans that love both groups. There's groups that don't have their concerts on the same night, in the same city, but they have it around the same time. So for instance, you'll have Group A that will have a concert on Sunday, and then Group B that will have a concert on Tuesday. While technically fans can attend both of them, there's still time and money involved, since you might not be free on Sunday or Tuesday to attend both concerts. And in the money part, quite obvious. So when you have K-pop labels sending their groups to the US and they're stacking US tour after US tour after US tour within 2 to 4 days of each other, I can't blame fans for being financially burnt out. So you might be asking how we got here. How did Americans get an abundance of K-pop concerts coming into their country year after year? And before we get into that, I do empathize with fans not in the US and not in Asia that don't get the slew of K-pop concerts that we do in the US. Maybe like Europe or Africa or Australia are crying in tears. It must be nice that the US has this K-pop abundance problem. But just 15 years ago, we had the opposite problem, where we barely got K-pop acts. So let's go down history lane real quick.
So how did we reach this point? To answer this, we have to go back to the 2000s, where during this time, Japan was the first overseas stronghold. Singers such as BoA back in 2001 and TVXQ back in 2005 sold millions. And then you had Southeast Asian countries such as the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand also became hot K-pop spots. Then, the first real push into the US.
Something happened in 2009 when JYP and the Wonder Girls thought, you know what? Let's invade the US shores. So Wonder Girls tours with Jonas Brothers, who were huge back in the day, and JYP thought the US was ready for K-pop, especially with their hit song, Nobody. But as we all know today, K-pop still did not break mainstream, despite having a big three company at the time, JYP, as well as a powerhouse group, Wonder Girls, spearheading the K-pop expansion in the US.
Then in the 2010s, China became a massive market. Groups such as EXO, K-dramas, and Korean endorsements and CFs became huge in the country.
And then we have 2016. So what happened this year? There was a major event called the THAAD crisis. So in a nutshell, it's the US installing this missile defense system in Korea, and China didn't like that. They thought that this missile defense system was way too close to their doorstep, and they protested to the Korean government, don't agree to the US deal to put this missile defense system in your country. We're gonna ban pretty much all Hallyu and Korean entertainment products. And then China follows through and bans Korean pop culture. After that, Korea was thinking, oh, we lost a huge market. What do we do? And the answer is, starting in 2017, they targeted the US.
That year, BTS broke through as they won the Billboard Top Social Artist, beating Justin Bieber.
And back in 2017, Justin Bieber was the hot artist. And whether or not you're a Bieber fan, those fans are very passionate for their singer. To have a non-American act, a K-pop act, BTS, win that award, which was supposedly to be just a shoe-in for Justin Bieber, shocked a lot of fans around the world. For K-pop fans already knew who BTS was, but a lot of American fans didn't. They were thinking, BTS who? And that's a wild thing to think about now, but back in 2017, they shocked the world.
From BTS's big win that year would follow new K-pop acts that would try their luck in the US.
Now we're in the 2020s, where Japan and now the US are the biggest revenue markets for K-pop. And for a lot of K-pop labels, as well as K-pop groups, making it in the US was a big milestone. Because to a lot of countries, the US is the pinnacle for music success. If you can make it in the top 10 of the various American music charts, then you're considered successful globally. But as great as K-pop's growth is in the US, it's a double-edged sword. Because while you have the S tier and A tier groups that are making it big and getting a lot of profit and clout and popularity here within American fans, I empathize a ton with the mid-tier groups and the small indie groups, because they're barely making ends meet or even losing money coming out here to the US and touring. So K-pop is very top heavy, as I like to call it. So you have a lot of mainstream fans that will only spend their money and their time on the S tier and A tier groups. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. You enjoy what you enjoy. But then for the mid-tier and indie smaller groups, where does that leave them? And the answer is a lot fewer fans, because the mainstream fans already spent the majority of their money on the popular groups they wanted to see, which means that those fans won't see the less popular groups. And I do think the mid-tier to smaller groups deserve a lot of attention, but a lot of fans can't financially stretch their money even further to see those groups. And I do empathize with the college students a lot. I've met several of them, and a lot of them are using their college loans or taking on massive debt on their credit cards to see their favorite biases. And while I don't recommend doing that at all, please try not to do that. At the same time, I understand.
It comes down to FOMO, or fear of missing out. And with the slew of K-pop groups flooding America these days, it's awfully hard to skip your favorite group's concert if you're a young college student that breathes K-pop. Which brings up the next question. Why are so many groups suddenly touring the US? It's all about money and prestige. While album streaming and CFs make their fair share of money, touring is important to K-pop labels as a big money maker, since they get a sudden surge of revenue in a short period of time. And with every tour also enhances a group's visibility and reputation in the US, as well as bragging rights to have toured in the country. Most importantly, more fans learn about new artists. This exposure leads to a bump in more album sales and more listens and streams on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Music. While touring is important for all groups to make money, the group's goals often differ depending on how big they are. For the Tier S and Tier A groups, their major goal is to, well, make a ton of money, and they often do. From their star power and labels' huge branding, these top-tier groups can expect to sell out venues ranging anywhere from 8,000 people in large auditoriums to 20,000 people in arenas to huge 40 to 50K stadiums. Yet for the mid-tier and smaller groups, think B-tier and below, their goals are more about exposure, building a fan base, and positioning themselves to one day become a top-tier group in the US. While the mid-tier groups may make a decent profit or break even, smaller groups usually lose money touring the US for more exposure. Ever since K-pop broke through in the US in 2017, top-tier groups did well in the US, while mid-tier to smaller acts had a much harder time. Yet these days, it's quite different, where even the bigger groups are starting to struggle. And yes, that includes even major acts from the big four labels. Take SM Entertainment's group RIIZE. Despite enormous buzz and strong album sales, their US tour had a special sale. Buy 2 and get 2 free tickets. On social media, fans shared half-empty seating charts and debated what went wrong. Some blamed Ticketmaster's dynamic pricing, others to oversaturation, where there's just too many shows competing for the same wallets. RIIZE isn't alone. TXT ran a similar buy 1, get 1 free ticket promo earlier in 2025. Other concerts went the standard route and did not do a buy 1, get 1 ticket free offer, hoping that fans would still come out. Yet, this did not pan out for most tours, because even famous soloists such as Wendy from Red Velvet felt the sting of empty seats. During her San Francisco stop on October 30th, 2025, it was reported that more than half the seats were still empty just 2 days before her concert. Prices were, on average, $100 to $125 per ticket, and it was only until tour organizers started lowering prices that more fans came out. In fact, Wendy and RIIZE both had to cancel their Atlanta tour, most likely due to either contract violations or poor attendance, as well as the cost of flying out to the city would be higher than any revenue they'd make. To put this in perspective, if the big groups and soloists are having a hard time, imagine the mid-tier and lower-tier groups that tour the US. As mentioned earlier, most K-pop fans will solely budget just for the tier S and A groups. Yet being even a high-tier group or solo singer doesn't guarantee instant success any longer in the US. K-pop labels and tour organizers are realizing this fast. This sudden decrease of K-pop attendance is being felt more than ever. While on paper, K-pop looks bigger than ever in the US, with stadiums, sponsorships, and festival slots being filled, industry insiders know the true story. After all, the companies look at the sagging sales numbers and know that there's major problems behind a K-pop juggernaut that invaded US shores back in 2017. The stats also back up fans' frustrations with soaring ticket prices and being priced out of being a K-pop fan. A major Billboard K-pop survey reveals some interesting numbers. 53% of commenters said that they haven't attended a single show in the past year. When asked why, 64% of them said that their favorite artist didn't tour near them, while 56% said that tickets were simply too expensive. So while fans are still investing in physical albums and merch, their spending habits are shifting away from live experiences at concerts. These fans still love the music, yet they can't afford to participate in person any longer. And one of the main culprits contributing to the declining ticket sales is the broken ticket system, where bots and scalpers will scoop up seats within seconds and then resell those same seats at double, triple, or even quadruple the price. Since there's a limited amount of tickets per city that are now incredibly expensive, is there a possible solution to this? And that answer would be having a group perform in a major sold-out city 2 times. Now you may be thinking, some groups already do this. This is not new, such as the S-tier groups of BTS, TWICE, and Blackpink. Or XG doing a second concert date in San Francisco in 2024 after immense demand. And Cat's Eye has 2 shows in SF, New York, and LA, each in their 2025 tour. Adding a second concert day would most likely alleviate these higher ticket prices and allow a lot more fans from that city to see their favorite groups. But as you can imagine, there's a real problem with this, and that would be idol burnout, where if you had back-to-back shows per city, that would quickly exhaust that group. So labels do have to balance customer demand with their artists' well-being. Another solution to making K-pop more affordable is the most simple: lower prices. While lowering prices also decreases revenue for K-pop labels and tour organizers, it turned around attendance for two notable acts, Stacy and P1 Harmony. When these two concerts started lowering prices, fans came out in droves and started filling out their respective venues, because lowering prices to $50 to $60 for a concert ticket is much more manageable than spending $120 to $140, especially in this economy.
Well, fans are burnt out financially and just burnt out from just so much K-pop fatigue. Why do fans keep going to K-pop concerts? A couple of reasons. The first one, FOMO, fear of missing out. If all your friends went to see a big concert and you missed out, you might regret it. You might be doom scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or on YouTube, and you're seeing your friends having fun, and fans will be thinking, I should have went there as well. Then we have the crazy fandom, where some fans might think, hey, you're not a true fan unless you spend this much money on that group. And I think personally, that's a toxic mentality and you shouldn't adhere to that. But there's a lot of fans that think being a better fan means spending a lot more money, even if you go into debt or if you're financially irresponsible. Please do not do that. Spend within your means. You have also the merch pressure, where it's not just enough to going to the concert. You got to get that merch, to commemorate you being at that concert. So whether you'll spend $50 on a t-shirt or $70 on a light stick or $95 on a sweater, merch can get pricey very fast. And then another factor is the US job market, where it's not so good right now in 2025.
This year alone has been horrible for many people's careers. Layoffs at UPS, Nestle, Amazon, Bosch, and Dell are just some of the major companies that let go of tens of thousands of people. A lot of companies are cutting back on employee count and are tightening their company structure. Three big factors to these massive layoffs are that the US is in an economic downturn, many companies are tightening their company structure, where a lot of them have overhired during the COVID years, and a lot of companies are adapting AI and replacing many of their workers with the new technology. For these K-pop fans suddenly without a job, their main priority is no longer seeing their favorite bias at a concert, but rather interviewing and landing their next job.
Because of that, a lot of fans are even more stretched because they have to save money now for adulting. And if they don't have a job or they're in transition in careers, they might skip a majority of the concerts that they would usually go to if they had a job. So with all that said, it's pretty crazy how just 15 years ago in the US, American fans were begging for any K-pop concerts, for any scraps that Korea and Asia would give us. And now in 2025, we're swimming in K-pop acts, but a lot of us can't afford it, both time-wise or financially. And it leaves us in a tough situation of, is too much of K-pop a bad thing? And I do think if this K-pop oversaturation continues without K-pop labels planning well in advance or not stepping on each other's toes by stacking K-pop tour on K-pop tour, K-pop attendance could go down in future years. So here's some other outcomes that could happen. Mid groups and smaller indie groups might get priced out of the US because it's too expensive to travel here, and they might just retreat back to Korea and just tour within Asia. Festivals might be the big winners here, where more festivals such as Coachella, which has a crazy 2026 lineup of Asian acts. Lollapalooza will get into it. Head in the Clouds will invite more K-pop acts. They'll be the big winners because they can afford more of the K-pop acts coming through to their festivals, and performing at a huge festival is considered a big honor to a lot of K-pop labels and their groups.
Another side effect is K-pop labels and tour organizers adjusting by renting much smaller venues. So instead of K-pop labels overestimating and reserving a 19,000 seat venue, they'll downsize to a more modest 8,000 person venue instead, making tour operations much cheaper. As mentioned earlier, the majority of K-pop groups are struggling to fill even 70% of a large venue and will most likely downsize. In fact, I think there's only going to be a few groups that will actually upgrade to a larger venue. These groups will skew towards the Tier S and Tier A groups with loyal fan bases. One group in particular is LE SSERAFIM, where in the SF venue, the Bill Graham Civic Auditorium, it seats around 8,500 people. The girls quickly filled up the venue and sold out tickets within minutes, as the queue was over 31,000 people waiting to buy tickets. In turn, the resale tickets ranged anywhere from $500 to $800. Many fans commented on the venue being too small for LE SSERAFIM, as it was soon predicted that the ladies could have easily sold 2x the 8,500 tickets they sold. These fans pointed out that since IVE and ITZY performed at the nearby Oakland Arena, which holds more than double the Bill Graham venue, LE SSERAFIM could have done the same. But as we broke down earlier, it's still quite hard to predict if even huge groups will sell out. With that being said, Source Music has a top tier group that doesn't fall into that category. They don't have to resort to any freebies or last minute sales. The label saw a huge demand of LE SSERAFIM and SF, as well as in the entire US tour, and will most likely upgrade their venue in their next US tour.
In the end, K-pop is meant to bring joy to many people. It does. K-pop is a great thing to have here in the US, even with its overabundance. I'm hoping K-pop labels start rescheduling a bit better and giving heads up notice to fans. The US job market improves, and the scalping prices, we got to get that under control. But I do, at the same time, empathize with fans that are just feeling financially burned out. So if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much. And I do have 2 questions for you. So the first one is, which concerts did you skip this year? And the second question is, do you only save money for your old bias groups? Or do you try to explore and see the more mid-tier to smaller indie acts? So I'd love to know your takes in the comments below, because I personally want to keep seeing K-pop growing here in the US, even if it means we get even more K-pop acts in the near future.